gentlemen, we move into our next fireside chat. And this chat is a conversation that very much reflects the pulse of India's new age growth story. And this session is presented in partnership with our banking partner, Karnataka Bank. And the specially curated theme for this session is Digital Leapfrog, MSMEs scaling with e-commerce. So in a rapidly digitizing economy, MSMEs are not just keeping pace, they're leapfrogging into the future by harnessing the power of e-commerce. So this next discussion will explore how digital platforms, compliance systems, and innovative business models are helping small and medium enterprises expand by crossing boundaries and building sustainable growth strategies in a highly competitive marketplace. So for this engaging conversation, I ask that you please join me in welcoming our esteemed guest, Vinaya Bhat, who is the General Manager, Chief Compliance Officer, and Principal Officer at Karnataka Bank. Huge round of applause, please. Vinaya, if we could kindly have you on stage. And I am particularly privileged and kicked to be spearheading this conversation. So with that, I'll make my way over to Sir. So Vinaya, it's no surprise that, Karnataka Bank is cherished amongst the small business community, right? The small business community has always cared for Karnataka Bank, and Karnataka Bank has reciprocated, gone above and beyond. It's certainly a two-way relationship as far as the outside world is concerned. So on the inside, tell me what Karnataka Bank is doing differently in terms of its small business, specifically curated solution suite.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that question. All dignitaries present over here. I am Vinaya Bhat, representing Karnataka Bank. As far as our Dakshina Kannada is concerned, there are about 7 banks who were originated and were flourishing in this particular area. But today we have Karnataka Bank from Mangaluru, and then we have Canara Bank, which is now at Bangalore.
Right.
As far as the lending or supporting MSMEs are concerned, Karnataka Bank has been a partner for long, in the past also. Even though there has been support in terms of traditional methods during the earlier periods of its existence. Slowly and steadily what happened was that there has been more digital footprints which has been utilized by all the financial institutions across the country. Now, the innovations which are coming into by way of partnerships either through fintechs or by creating infrastructure within the banking organizations to create curated products for specific requirements of the MSMEs. In each one of these arena, what typically happens is that there is an agility which is coming up. There is a transformational force which is coming up. Fintechs are coming and joining hands with banking institutions like Karnataka Bank. Typically, the bank provides them the trust which has been there for years and years of existence, decades and decades of surveys. And the fintechs bring into the products as well as new lines of businesses. For Karnataka Bank, as you asked, so we had our transformation journey started in somewhere around about 2012. And in 2017, we had partners who had joined hands with us in creating 2 very, very interesting units for the bank. One is our Digital Center of Excellence. Today it is placed in Bangalore, and we also have another Analytical Center of Excellence, which is also being at the same housed at Bangalore. So about 100 odd technocrats who typically understand the banking business is working out from these locations. Now they create products. It's not that they are developing it by themselves, but they also do collaborations with fintech. I'll just give one single example.
Please, sir.
Yeah, one single example. We partnered with one of one of very, very strong organization or a strong fintech partner, which is Navi Technologies. And we created a product called Trizo. So it's very, see, today if you look at the payment solutions across India, we have one of the best solutions for transaction in across all the developing nations. If you look at the UPI infrastructure, which today this country has, having an embedded credit over an UPI infrastructure. So what happens typically is that the UPI journeys, transactions will happen through the UPI network, but we will have an embedded credit over that UPI network. Transaction happens seamlessly and frictionless. At the same time, at the end or at the middle of those transactions, automatically credit is being embedded into it, and the individual or the organization or the MSME unit who is using that transaction platform automatically gets a choice of credit, be it a 45-day credit, be it a 90-day credit, or be it a long-term credit. So this is an innovation in itself. We are moving away from the traditional banking, underwriting using paper. Today we have digital footprints which we use for underwriting. Even if you look at the government policies which is there today, the usage of GST, the usage of ITR, the usage of transaction patterns, behavioral analytics, repayment patterns, each and every footprints which are today available in digital arena is being used by all the financial institutions to provide seamless, at the same time, safe credit to all the units bar individuals who are in requirement of that.
Well, Vinaya, thank you for setting that context. And I've got a follow-up question for you, because as you enable the small business community to become more digitally empowered, right? Is becoming digitally empowered entirely positive, or is there a downside? How do you anticipate for challenges such as, for example, fraud prevention, right? The cultural resistance that comes with automated lending, correct? Not to mention repayment disciplines. These are all new age challenges that digital integration has brought to the forefront.
Of course. So, see, it's a dual-edged thing. Now, let us look it from the point of view of a institution, because Karnataka Bank has got 101 years of existence.
Right.
And basically what happens is that this bank might be looking into a traditional way of banking, and about 9,000 odd people who are employed in the institution, the middle level managers, will be more happy to see a paper on hand.
There is a legacy.
Of course. So what happens is that if I see something, I believe. So at a particular point of time, what happened was that we look for hard collaterals. And that is how the traditional banking worked all along. The moment we see a hard collateral, irrespective of the fact that that business will have a cash flow in the future, that business may be sustainable in the future, or even whether there is a repayment capacity which is actually coming out of that business, but because of the fact that there is a hard collateral, many times what happens is that traditional banks will go ahead with a lending opportunity.
Right.
But now on the other hand, when we look into a digital footprint, that is typically where we fund to a organization or an individual who had got a poor asset, or he may not be having an asset as a collateral. Here what typically looks into is that the digital footprint, how the transaction happens, whether there is a repayment which is properly happening, etc., is being looked into by the bank. So the assessment is objective. Right. Earlier it was subjective.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, given that in the small business community and otherwise, credit is largely driven by collateral. But now, looking at, transaction history or repayment behavior, algorithms are all of a sudden becoming the new age hard assets.
Perfect.
All right.
So
okay.
Here again, see,
Yes.
if you look into a particular transactional based credit which the banks are now going into,
Right.
it becomes a little bit of dispassionate. Yes. See, the banks like Karnataka Bank has their life, their culture, the systems were basically on relationships. I see somebody, I speak to him, I create a relationship, I believe in him.
Right. There's a trust, there's a transparency.
Yeah, of course. It is in the harmony of trust or even you can say that the whole thing is built up on trust. Now, when we move on to a digital era, because I onboard a customer, you take Trezor, I even have not met him. I don't know who he is. The only thing which I have is that he has did a transaction. His history is very much visible to me because each digital footprint he leave has got some information which is flowing to me, and on that basis, I assess his repayment capacity, I lend to him.
So business is personal, but it can take a different direction all of a sudden, a new age direction.
Yes.
So Vinaya, a moment ago you brought up fintechs, all right? And in theory, one would assume that when there's, a collaboration between a bank and a fintech, it's all of a sudden, credibility and agility. It's the perfect marriage. That's certainly one school of thought. Another school of thought is that fintechs and banks are fundamentally, at odds with one another. They perhaps cannot exactly peacefully coexist. That's all a myth. Can you shed more light on your personal stance?
See, I will always say, because there are many fintech collaborations we had, today also we have a lot of fintech collaborations.
No?
Fintechs brings in the agility, product viability, they bring in fast nature. Bank lends them credibility, bank lends them regulatory prudence, bank lends them risk governance. Fintechs gives bank wings, bank gives fintechs roots.
Lovely.
So if there is a coexistence which is happening today between fintechs and banks, that is typically for delivering new modern products to the customers. At the same time, the harmony or the trust which is being lent by the bank, that helps the customers or that helps the MSME units to be sure about what is being delivered. Another very important thing is that there is a cultural mindset shift. So when we had our 100th year celebration in the same hall,
Yes.
about a year back,
I see.
what we thought or what we told to the public was that Karnataka Bank, a bank which is having 100 years of history and trust, on the 100th year, it is a new startup.
Phenomenal.
So at the end of the day, it is not the digital which we need to look at. It is the shift of mindset. There may be many products which is coming into the arena. There may be a lot of ways in which, as you rightly told, funds can flow to an MSME. But at the precise way in which is that these funds which flow through the digital systems are very volatile. So as you rightly said, when we speak about digital existence, partnerships, and usage of digital footprints, it is equally responsible for the organization like Karnataka Bank, which holds the trust of the public for after decades of existence, is to deliver it in a safe and prudent way.
Phenomenal. And Vinaya, when it comes to the urban-rural divide in this country, I believe that also includes digitization. All right, and we're in Mangaluru. Mangaluru is, of course, known for its coastal legacy, right? It's known for its proximity to the port, but it doesn't come within the country's major metros, so to speak, which makes for a particularly relevant and useful case study here. When you look at the stakeholders in the lending equation, right, and you're increasingly sort of looking at parameters such as new models of assessing risk, correct? New models of arriving at payment plans of sort of the credibility of the person that's taking the loan. Do you meet a lot of cultural resistance in that equation? And if so, how do you counter that?
See, Mangalore, as you rightly said, has got all the means of transportation.
It does.
You do have a very solid port, you do have air, and you have the onshore benefits here. And there are many stakeholders. So typically you look in such areas, you see that the export-oriented units or export-oriented businesses usually flourish. That is how it is being seen across in the country. As far as Mangalore is concerned, even though we have many infrastructures in place, but the connectivity in terms of digital footprints across the ports, across the other areas or countries is yet to get fully established. established.
Sure.
So now it is a responsibility of all the financial sector units which are working here or the institutions which are working here. At the same time, it is also a very important responsibility, as the last panelists were mentioning, bringing in more people to Mangalore, bringing in more brains to Mangalore, and develop this particular area, because for a long time this coastal city has been continuously flourishing. There has been a lot of developments which has taken place here, but again, to have it a business friendly place, to have it a suitable connectivity, as you rightly said, across the country, there are many things which we need to do, not just digital, but also on the other areas of creating more infrastructures here. As far as financial institutions are concerned, I'm very sure that not just Karnataka Bank, all the financial institutions which are working here, if you name a bank in the country, that bank is having a branch in Dakshina Kannada. And all those branches, I'm very sure, they have got sufficient manpower who can very well guide any export-oriented unit to get the funding and also to get all other support which is necessary as on today's date.
Well, sir, our audience here is certainly going to hold you to that. So we'll have you live up to that, sir. And building on some of your observations and building on some of what we just heard. All right. If you're looking, and Bangalore very much has its own identity in Karnataka, well outside the shadows of Bangalore, correct? And it's only going from strength to strength. But that said, what more would you like to see by way of government support? What more would you like to see by way of new age banking culture and perhaps entrepreneurial education for that vision that you've just described to become a reality?
Of course. So there are 2 or 3 things. If you look at the 24-25 budget itself, the government has already come out with a digital assessment methodology for the MSMEs.
Right.
So there the trinity which work is on GST, then transaction, everything can be taken, and a surrogate method of assessment is already there in place. Now number 2, very recently, 2 days back, there was one meeting with the RBI top management, with the private sector and public sector banks, where the importance of ULI. See, today, the whole development which we see, Leapfrog, which we see is mainly because of the influence of UPI.
Right.
Correct. So the UPI is a platform where instant credit is being given. The government is coming out with a clearing which can be done on the same day, within 3 hours. All these things are happening, but these are coming out because of the success which is seen for the UPI. Now, if a similar platform is being brought in India, which can support the lending across all the banks and ecosystem, that is a great idea.
Sure.
So the government and RBI has come out through RBI Edge, which is an arm of RBI who does incubation of the new things, new digital things. Today they have already come out with unified lending interface. Now the unified lending interface already have land records, your PI data if it is to be authenticated. It also has Vahan, vehicle records. Today if you do an hypothecation, we have to run to the dealer to get it hypothecated.
Right.
Tomorrow, in the bank itself, the moment that transaction happens, one API goes to the registry and your vehicle gets hypothecated. Tomorrow you close a loan, again another API goes to the registry, your hypothecation is getting revoked. So, as on today's date, I can assure you that the present government and also the RBI along with them, and also in the future, whichever government is going to come, the position of India as a digitally developed nation or a digitally developing nation, a nation which is on forefront for supporting businesses either through UPI or through ULI or through any other measures which is going to come, I am absolutely sure that the coming days are going to be bright for all the businesses who are operating not just in Dakshina Kannada but in this country.
I think that deserves a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Very heartening to hear that. And if we go back to the small business community for a moment, Vinaya, I mean, they've had a bit of a rough road. I think first came GST, demonetization, the COVID crisis, the economic downturn that followed, and most recently, if you look at all the geopolitical volatility that surrounds us, it is an unprecedented time in human history. So we know what Karnataka Bank is doing differently. But if we look at our counterparts abroad, globally, what are lessons that the bank can take from them to better enable Indian small businesses to compete on that global stage, sir?
See, what happens typically is that, as far as you told, the environment is volatile today.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have gone through, you told GST, there is a demonetization, and then COVID. COVID may be on a separate footage, but GST and demonetization, there are different opinions. But GST in itself has created a clear digital footprint, and there is no doubt in that. Today, because the digitalization is happening because of a certain amount that GST is in place. If you look at the external world, so in many of those countries, the similar volatilities in terms of COVID might have come, but the developmental activities in case of digital, either it is already happened or it is just happening now. There are many banks across the world who are typically providing these sort of assistances to the MSMEs in their countries by many other factors like supply finance, or there is an export finance which is happening, or many other ways it is vendor finance is happening, many other ways. I don't believe that as far as India is concerned, there is anything which today we are lacking in terms of providing funds. There may be lacking in process and procedures. Absolutely, there may be sometimes many people used to say that I'm not getting a funding at the right time, or I'm not getting the fund which I actually want to have.
Or it's not a frictionless experience, and it should be a frictionless experience.
It should be a frictionless experience, and many times what happens is that some or the other, the points which have, or the regulations which have, or the procedures which have, may be a deterrent. That I do agree. But at the same time, each of the financial institution in India is very much competitive today. They have the products which is required for any business in India to compete in any of the world. There is no doubt in that. Those all products, as well as the whatever the wherewithal is there in the Indian banking system. And the regulator of India is one of the best in the world. We have, for example, you take today, you see, we speak about finance.
Sure.
Correct? But there is another menace which, together with the banking industry, the government and the RBI is trying to control today, is on mules. It is an area where, see, on a liability side also, there is a threat coming up.
Right.
So there are multiple things which come up in a financial arena. It is on asset side, on liability side, it will be always there. And creating an environment within the country which is suitable for this country to adapt and adopt, and to march ahead with a proper finance system in place. That is more important, rather than we try to import something which is happening outside. That's what my take on that.
Sure. So adapt and adopt, both in the same breath, so that the solution remains extremely relevant to the community you're trying to cater to.
Sure.
Correct? And so if we were to perhaps fast forward 5 years from now, you just mentioned that Karnataka Bank has enjoyed a 100-year legacy, but now we consider ourselves to be a startup in our infancy. All right? So how long will this next period of growth last for the bank, and essentially what's the legacy you'd ultimately like for Karnataka Bank to leave behind?
See, this bank was actually born in this place about 101 years back by 9 gentlemen who came up to support small businesses, education, and farmers.
Entrepreneurs in this very room.
Of course.
Right.
So this is how this organization was born. And we have seen a lot of leaders after it has been born on these 101 years who lived up to that ethics and ethos. And that is today made this organization, Karnataka Bank, having a head office in Dakshina Kannada and operating in almost all states in this country. As you rightly said, startup is a mindset. You cannot be static always because the industry is moving ahead, economy is moving ahead. There is a competitiveness which we need to put into the systems. So that mindset will come when we are very clear about what should be our approach for the future. Our approach today is 100% to go establish a digital organization, have collaborations with fintechs, have agile developments within the organization, create product prototypes. At the same time, we will not lose our culture, we will not lose our trust, we will not going to put jeopardy into the depositors' trust which we have today in ourselves. We will be agile, but at the same time, we will be sure to make that our systems are risk aware. We cannot be risk averse. We need to be risk aware, create proper mitigations, continue our journey to the next 100 years, and hand it over to the coming generations, again to serve the entrepreneurs who are here, their next generations.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And sir, a last and final question for you, for entrepreneurs in this very room that you've just referenced, all right, who are perhaps, struggling in the sense that limited access to credit and finance are perennial problems that plague MSMEs. They're looking to take that first step and possibly build an association with the Karnataka Bank. How might you guide them in that direction?
Of course, see, one thing is very, very clear nowadays, because every bank is now moving away from an asset-backed finance, which was there earlier, to a transaction-based finance or a finance which is based on the prudence in operations. That is very clear. So the very important fact today is that as every transaction or every deed which is being done leaves a digital footprint today, it is very important that we need to have a prudence in our transactions, in our methods of functioning. I am very sure, because many of the entrepreneurs who are here is already associated with Karnataka Bank, and I know them personally also. What I again, in all the forums which prior also, now also and future also, which we will be guiding, is that as an organization, as a bank, Karnataka Bank is always there. We have got all the products and we will be supporting all the entrepreneurs. Please make sure that we are conducting our business with a proper prudence, and at the same time be aware about the risk which is coming into the organizations. End of the day, the bank is a repository of confidence. Depositors are giving money to me to make sure that whatever I am utilizing, that is taking into consideration of their security. So I am a custodian of trust. I have to be a custodian of trust.
What a wonderful and incredibly moving note on which to conclude the conversation. Thank you so much. Huge round of applause, please, for Vinaya.
Thank you.
Sir, I'd love to present you with a token of appreciation personally, my way of saying thank you for being here at the ET Now.in Business Conclave and Awards 2025. All right, can we kindly have a token of appreciation?